Every once in a while, you find a story that isn't just about food, it's about life. A story that grabs you and just won't let go. For me, the story of Chris Bianco is one of those. It's a story that pulls at your heartstrings. It's a powerful lesson in passion, sacrifice, and the true cost of perfection. I hope it touches your heart as it did mine. What if the one thing you love most in the world, the one thing you dedicated your entire life to perfecting, was also slowly destroying you? For Chris Bianco, this wasn't just a question, it was his reality. He was a man on a mission to create the perfect pizza, but his enemy wasn't a competitor or a bad review. It was the very air he breathed, the fine dust of the flour, the intense heat of the fire. And the pizza he made, it became a legend. A pizza so perfect, one famous food critic said it could make you cry. A pizza that some would call the best in the world, coming from a place nobody expected. This is the story of how a restless kid from New York, with nothing but a gut feeling and a tiny oven, started a revolution in the middle of the desert. It's a story about obsession, sacrifice, and the steep price of perfection. To understand how Chris Bianco changed American pizza forever and why his creation almost cost him his life, we have to go back to the beginning, to a time before the awards, before the fame, and before the lines. Every legend has a beginning. For Chris Bianco, it started not with a choice, but a twist of fate. A childhood asthma diagnosis closed the door on the outside world, but it opened another, the kitchen. Alongside his mother and grandmother, he learned that love was an ingredient you could taste, and what could have been a curse became, in his own words, an incredible blessing. His first job was folding boxes at Aldo's Pizzeria, where his slogan, "You've tried the rest, now try the best," sparked a lifelong obsession. To answer the question, what truly makes something the best? Well, this passion didn't translate to the classroom. Feeling like an outcast, Chris dropped out of high school, a decision that broke his parents' hearts and led to a year of silence from his father. He was lost, but he knew one thing: he could work hard. He just needed to find what to work hard at. During this time, he learned to make fresh mozzarella by hand at Mike's Deli in the Bronx, a skill that would later become his lifeline. With no diploma and no plan, a lucky contest win gave him 2 plane tickets to anywhere in the United States. On a whim, he chose Phoenix. Arriving with nothing, he fell back on the one true thing he knew: mozzarella. To survive, he started going door to door to restaurants and pizza joints, selling the fresh mozzarella he made by hand. His passion and quality created a buzz that reached the owner of a local gourmet grocer, who offered him a small corner of his store. It was the chance of a lifetime. With a newly installed wood-burning oven, Chris Bianco began making pizzas, and from that tiny corner, a legend was born. The cult following at the gourmet grocer was a success, but it was a borrowed dream built in someone else's space. And just as quickly as it began, it started to crumble. The market's ownership fell on hard times and the business went downhill. Chris was left without a home for his craft. His first taste of success was snatched away by forces beyond his control. Feeling lost, he followed a friend to Santa Fe to work as a sous chef, but his heart was still pulling him elsewhere. Burned out, but more determined than ever to master his craft, he made a pivotal decision. In 1992, he left for Italy. It was a pilgrimage back to the source, a journey to reconnect with the soul of real Italian food, and especially the art of pizza. He returned to Phoenix in 1993 with a renewed sense of purpose. It was then he met another pioneering chef, Krissa Robertson, who had just opened her acclaimed restaurant, Rancho Pino. She gave him a space to make his pizzas, and once again, his work began to draw attention. This time, the opportunity was real. In 1994, when Robertson moved her restaurant to a bigger location, Chris took over her lease. It was the turning point he had been working toward his entire life. He finally had a place of his own. The first official Pizzeria Bianco was born. 2 years later, he moved the restaurant to the tiny historic brick building in Heritage Square that would become a world-famous landmark. So what was the secret behind Pizzeria Bianco? To understand the pizza, you have to understand the man. Chris Bianco wasn't just a chef, he was a philosopher with a spiritual obligation to his craft. His guiding principle was brutally simple: shit in, shit out. For Bianco, a pizza's story began in the soil. He obsessed over every ingredient. When he discovered that wheat flour grown right there in Arizona was being shipped to Italy to make the world's best pasta, it proved his theory. World-class ingredients could be found in his own backyard. He built relationships with local farmers and made his mozzarella fresh by hand every single day. When asked how he knew when the cheese was ready, he simply said, when it smiles. This blend of brutal honesty and poetic artistry was pure Bianco. As his wife Mia says, he is someone who says the F word a lot, but he is so sweet. He's a meditative soul whose husky voice and faint Bronx accent might sound like a thug, but his words were often filled with gratitude and blessings and an intense desire to make people feel good. But behind the legend was a profound insecurity. Negative comments cut him like a knife. Decades after a review was published, he could still quote a writer's complaint about the basil being microscopic, repeating the criticism as if he had read it that morning. He was a perfectionist who felt the weight of every pizza and every opinion. In the end, his pizza is a direct reflection of him. Intense, passionate, caring, and completely honest.
I'm smiling just thinking about it. I hope you are too. God bless you.
The result of this obsession was a pizza that became a legend. Creations like the Rosa with pistachio, red onion, and rosemary were a lesson in his philosophy, finding perfection in a few unforgettable ingredients. Soon, the food world made a pilgrimage to the desert. Legendary food writer Ed Levine, on a quest to find the country's best pizza, was one of the first. What he found in that tiny brick building left him stunned. He would later write in his book, Pizza, A Slice of Heaven, that Chris Bianco's pizza can make you cry. It wasn't just food, it was an event, a performance. The proof was on the sidewalk, where people waited for hours in the brutal desert sun, with some rumored to even dig through his trash, desperate to uncover his secrets. The ultimate validation came in 2003 when Chris Bianco won the James Beard Award for Best Chef. He was the first pizzaiolo to ever receive the honor, shattering the ceiling for his craft. The kid who started by selling mozzarella from his car had reached the top of the culinary world. But Chris Bianco isn't most chefs. He refused to let the award define him or even hang it on the restaurant wall. He said what happens in the restaurant every night matters more. It's what you owe to the customer. He always gave credit to his team and the farmers who grew the food, building his business on a simple rule: find good people and pay them well.
Here's the guy, look, big superstars right here. I made the meeting. Lauch's been here, man, since the first day. This is more his pizzeria than mine.
For Chris Bianco, the ultimate award was never a medal. It was the loyalty of his team and the respect of his customers. To understand the crisis, you have to understand the connection. The people waiting for hours in the brutal desert sun weren't just waiting for pizza. They were waiting for him. They were waiting for the nightly performance, a front row ticket to see a rock star at his oven. And every night he gave them that show. From the outside, it was a landmark success. But on the inside, Chris Bianco was suffocating. His entire identity was tied to the fire. As he revealed on Chef's Table, that oven wasn't a job. It was his church, his meditation, his stage. It was who he was. And now his body was rejecting it. The magic in the air, the fine dust of organic flour, the wood smoke that seasoned the room had become toxic. After decades of breathing it all in, he was diagnosed with severe occupational asthma called Baker's lung. The diagnosis wasn't just a health warning. It felt like a death sentence for his soul. The doctors gave him the final ultimatum: step away from the fire or risk permanent damage or worse.
The doctor tells him, if you don't want to die, you got to stop making pizza.
But I had no place else to go. I'm sorry.
He had to surrender. For his wife Mia, for his children, and for himself, he made the impossible choice. He stepped away from the oven. The world felt the shift. Critics wondered if the magic was gone. Loyal supporters felt a sense of loss. The ritual was broken. This chorus of voices only amplified his own terrifying internal question: what am I if I'm not the guy at the oven? In that silence, the man who had defined Pizzeria Bianco had to figure out who he was meant to be now. But a fire isn't extinguished that easily. It just finds a new way to burn. Forced to lay down his pizza pill, Chris Bianco had to reinvent himself. He chose to transform from a master craftsman into a mentor, a leader, and the guardian of the philosophy he had built from nothing. His vision exploded beyond the walls of a single pizzeria. There's Pane Bianco, his temple to the perfect sandwich. There's Tratto, an intimate restaurant exploring his love for handmade pasta. He expanded Pizzeria Bianco to Los Angeles and co-founded Bianco de Napoli, scaling his obsession with perfect organic tomatoes to kitchens across the country. He couldn't be at every oven, but his spirit could be in every can. He serves as the culinary partner with the Caneros Resort in Napa with a new all-day Italian-inspired restaurant called The Farm. Supported by his wife Mia and brother Marco, he poured his energy into his team, the Pizzeria Bianco family. He realized his true legacy wasn't just in the pizza, it was in the culture of excellence he had built, a culture that could live on through others. The kid who dropped out of high school became an elder statesman, sharing his soul with the world on Netflix's Chef's Table and in a best-selling cookbook. And then, nearly 20 years after his first groundbreaking win, came the ultimate validation. In 2022, Chris Bianco won a second James Beard Award, this time for Outstanding Restaurateur. The first award was for the master chef at the fire. This one was for the leader, the mentor, and the visionary. It was the perfect final chapter. Chris Bianco's story teaches us that true passion is never extinguished. It just finds a new way to burn. It's a reminder that the greatest things we build are not the things we make with our own hands, but the legacies of love and dedication we leave for others to carry forward. Let us know in the comments what part of his journey inspired you the most, and don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video and want more like it.